In this demonstration, I'll describe the steps necessary when working in the Design tab of the Omega software. Essentially, this is the wizard or stack and the remaining steps for modifying prior to sending your template or carve to the carver. Basically, the first step is to adjust the ML. I'm going to go up and adjust or rotate the model to the medial side. We want to identify the level of the ischial tuberosity and move our green line to that level. Basically, the ML width right now is 6 1/4 inches. If we refer to our measurement sheet for this particular patient, that is exactly the width that we need. So technically we don't need to adjust it any further than it is right now. But just to show everybody how to use this tool while we're working in the Design tab, the way this works is if we hit the down arrow and go to 2-inch intervals by left clicking, we take this arrow and pull this down to that level. We see that it says 6 1/4 inches. If we click into the box, if we want to make it 6 inches, we can type in the value, or we can use the up and down arrows to subtract 1/4 inch, and then simply click adjust, and it will shrink our model or increase it depending on what we need it to be. So we can now see that the value in our box on the gray area is 6 inches. Well, we need it to be larger than that, so I'm going to actually go to this cog and clear changes, and it will go back to the original value. So, and I can check that by simply going back with my green line, double checking the ML, and the current value is 6 1/4. So that's how you change that if you need to. We're going to leave it where it's at and move on to the next step, which is our caliper tool. And with this tool now we can check our AP, or the anterior posterior dimension of this model, and that would be from the scarpa to the transverse channel. So if we go to the first upper down arrow, we're going to click the scarpa. We're going to go to the second down arrow, click the transverse channel, and 2 our pointer arrows are going to pop up. And then if we go to this here, it tells us a distance right here of 5 1/4 inches. That's actually quite a bit under what our AP should be. Our AP should be 6 inches. For the time being, we're going to leave that where it's at. With this particular style of socket, we actually took a fairly soft or loose AP, but currently we're about 3/4 inch under that measurement. We know where it's at. We're going to move on to the adjust circumference modification at this point. Again, I'm going to go to the medial side. This might shift this model once I click this down arrow. Go to 2-inch intervals. Good, I left it on the medial side. And this is what we call the 0 level marker here. And it's perfect that the first marker is pretty much right on it. And now we have to refer back to our measurement sheets. First thing we want to do if we go to our instructions are we need this first 0 circumference to be roughly 1 inch to 1.5 inches below our original circumference. In this case, it was 19 1/4 inches. So if we go 1.5 inches below that, that's going to get us to 17 3/4. So we're going to type in a value of 17 3/4. And the computer will simply do the rest. This measurement should be 17 1/4, and somewhere throughout the rest of these adjustments that we've been making, this would shrink a little bit. All right, and again, using our measurement sheet, we're just going to go right down the line and type in our measurements. Some are going to go up, some are going to go down. This one should be 15 7/8. 14 3/4, so it stayed pretty close. And this one should be 14 inches. Okay, once we have everything in, we can go back up and lock these out. I'm actually going to pull this down and lock that, so those don't change. Hit adjust, and it will change these circumferences to match the patient's. Now we're going to go to the remove material phase. For the most part, it looks pretty decent. Alright, so the only other adjustments we need to make are we're going to detail out a couple of areas. One is along the hamstrings. We're going to do that by increasing this tool width size to 1.5 inches. Fixed depth, and we're going to go to 5/16. Now down along this lateral wall, we're going to carve in a channel. Keep this as straight as you can. And finish roughly about 1 inch from the very distal end. Now spin this around. Good. And then we're going to do the same thing on the medial side. We're going to finish this up over here though. Again, 1 inch or so from the very distal end. And you can keep that as straight as you can. Now you can go back and kind of clean up some of these little rough spots. Remember, you're using the Willowwood software, as long as you have a fixed depth, it won't take any additional material off. So you can go back and just kind of knock off those little edges there. And we're going to go back up in here, and men in particular tend to have a dimple area here. The other thing is we don't want this wall to go straight up. This should have roughly 3/4 inch of gap on this lateral proximal wall. So we're going to knock some of this off and create a dimple over here on this side of the buttocks. And then along here, we'll take some of this off. It looks pretty decent. And then we're just going to kind of reinforce this transverse channel. But we're going to do it with a little smaller tool. We'll go down to 1 inch. So right through here, we'll come back through. Actually, I'm going to back that out. And we'll go down to about 3/16. But try to stay out of the area that you've done, otherwise it almost looks like you've built it up. That looks pretty good. The only other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to round around this corner here. So maybe it almost looks like you're adding a buildup, but you're not. That's not a buildup. I'm going to do the same thing around this corner. Good. We can actually blend some of that out of there by right-clicking. Good. So we want a round corner. Now, just to help to, again, enhance these hamstrings, one of the things I think that makes sense and works is we're going to go back up to 1.5 inches, and we're going to go this all the way down to 1/8. And on the very medial side, we're going to just take a thin layer off this very medial side. And this will just help to really make these hamstrings, this wall pop here. So that looks good. Now we're going to go to a 2-inch medium blend. Blend all this together. This is just some of the detail work. That'll give us a nice hamstring channel. The only area that we're not going to blend with this size tool is through that transverse channel area. We'll come back and do that at the very end with a smaller 1-inch tool. So we'll just kind of slowly come down through all of these areas and blend this in. This channel here helps to lock into the femur and prevent rotation. Also helps provide total contact. Works extremely well. Very nice. Again, on the medial side, this is fairly flat and in shape. And we're just doing this last little 1/8 of an inch here. Again, it just helps to provide that last little detail to this hamstring channel. Now, I'm just going to go back and make this a 1-inch tool just to do this area here. Oops. I hit add, to right click, and very quickly come in here and detail this out. Again, I mentioned earlier that we take kind of a soft AP. I don't want to go under this wall. I like this. This should have a square, almost 90-degree angle to the shelf. The ischial tuberosity is going to float in here above the shelf. It should not hit or sit on that. It should be just contained in here and create a bony lock between here and the greater trochanter. But it should not sit down on that ledge there. This is looking real nice. Now, what I was mentioning before is if we take the lateral side of this socket and line it up with a straight line, the very top of this, I don't know if you zoom it out, it didn't work very well. There's a straight line. So we have a straight line here. Tilt it just a little bit. So this edge of the socket is on this line. Distal end is on this line, but the top of our socket is almost 3/4 of an inch away from it. So that's actually ideal. So this whole wall, for the most part, except for this little piece here, is following this line. Okay, with the exception of the very most proximal portion of our socket, which is the patient's hip. It's perfect. We want this very top lateral wall of our socket to be trailing back into the patient or following the patient right here. This should be going back in toward our patient, and it is. Okay, that contour should be back into the patient. This is trochanter. This is the distal aspect of the greater trochanter. This is the trochanter. That looks very nice. Okay, scarpa area looks nice. Adductor longus looks nice. This socket's essentially done. We'll just go back in and double check, make sure that we have our length correct. Overall length is 13 inches. ML, 6 1/4 inches. Zero level, 17 3/4. Exactly what we wanted. Again, right down the line. All these measurements should be exact. So, and again, this has a very nice look and shape. Medial wall should be relatively flat looking. A very nice looking hamstring channel down the back wall. So if I hit posterior, here's our posterior wall. Here's our ischial seat. This is aggressive, super aggressively high. Here's our gluteal area. Again, in the end, this will be plastic. It's a test socket for starters. This will all be flexible plastic. It's nice and rounded and contoured very nicely for the time being. ASIS, nice high front wall for the socket. Again, low for the adductor longus tendon. Socket has a nice long, great shape. Here's the tendon. This is carved. Flatten a spot down here for the valve. This is a true suction socket. Again, has a very nice shape to it. So this one's done, ready to go to the carver. Again, all the other conditions have been met. Have our ML, have our AP, have our length, and have all of our circumference where we want them based on our measurement sheet. So finished, ready to go.